So we'll ask our Mayor, Regina Romero, to welcome us and kick this off this evening, and then we'll move on with our program. We're really appreciative all of you are here. We look forward to the conversations in the chat box and the ones we're able to enjoy together. So thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Charlene. And for those that don't know, Charlene is my chief of staff. And I want to thank her and Poonam and every single department director and others that are joining us to present today about what resilient recovery is and what it means to the residents of the city of Tucson. We want to hear from you. We're a small but mighty group. So those of you that are joining us, your voices are going to be highlighted and elevated more than any of the other conversations we've had. We first approached the idea of town halls to hear from the community, engage the community in my office. And we grouped the town halls. This is our fourth and final one. By no means will it be the last opportunity to add your voice to the budgeting process, but we created these town halls not separated by departments, but separated by services. So we have had a community safety town hall, and others. And now we have the resilient recovery. And so we want to know what it means to you to recover in the city of Tucson from this pandemic, and how we, mayor and council, and the city manager, which by the way is joining us today. Michael Ortega is our city manager and will be with us and listen to your advice and feedback on where we have to focus our funds. And so we are very lucky to have Barbara Coffey with the Economic Initiatives Office, as well as Elaine Becker, who will be helping us present today on what culture and culture and the city of gastronomy and what that means to the city of Tucson in terms of our economy, as well as co-presenting on that end with Visit Tucson, Felipe Garcia. And then we'll finalize the presentation with Laura Hamway, who is our Parks and Recreation Director. So we have a really awesome, wonderful presentations ready for you. And for me, what it means to recover here in the city of Tucson is that we focus our attention and our dollars into creating a small business incentive program and investing in our legacy businesses and investing in arts and culture and what makes the city of Tucson so unique, as well as continuing to invest in tourism and startups, and as well as attracting high wage long-term jobs in the city of Tucson. So I want to hear from you, and I will cede the floor to Poonam, who is our wonderful, amazing facilitator, so that she could tell you exactly where we go from here.
Thank you, Mayor Romero. I will now cite you to my 4 adult children. I think the term was wonderful and amazing. I'm going to use those. Thank you, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I believe the mayor's got another commitment, but then we'll rejoin a little bit. So just thank you. Part of what makes Tucson extraordinary is outstanding leadership. Thank you for that. Mr. Ortega, to you too, because I know that you are a tag team on a max. So welcome. We are rounding the corner using a baseball analogy. We're rounding third, headed for home. This is our 4th budget town hall. I know some of you sadly will never get a Subway sandwich, although you deserve one for having attended all 4 of them. For those of you that have not attended all 4, let me just do a little bit of level setting about what we're doing. Housekeeping, we are recording this session so that we can put it on the city's website and others can benefit from hearing it too. The chat is actively monitored. Jeff Yates, Although by day he is Clark Kent in finance at the city of Tucson, we've just discovered that his greater gift to mankind is in curating chats. So he is a chat meister. So anything in the chat, just please know that Jeff will be all over it. Use the raise your hand feature if you would like to express thyself. And we've got about 40 people, it looks like. So that's a fairly large turnout. So when you speak, let me encourage you to think like a cupcake, short and sweet, which is now, I've just realized, a really bad analogy. So you get the point, though. We want to hear from as many as we can. So I would encourage and reward brevity so that everyone can be there. Let me just quickly, why we're here. The mayor just touched on it. The budgeting process of the city of Tucson is underway. Later this spring, Mayor Council will be receiving a recommended budget from the staff. That's our destination, right? Is to approve a thoughtful, relevant budget that serves Tucsonans. As we journey to get there, there's public hearings that are always part of the budgeting process, so that's a regulatory requirement. They will be there for you. But beyond that, the mayor and council and the leadership of the city really wants your input. Over time, their desire and their intention is to redesign the entire budgeting process, the overall process, to build the city's budget based on the community's priorities regarding services you want. Call it participatory budgeting, right? That's the long-term goal. It's simple, yet quite a profound shift for how government functions. Let's be clear, we ain't going to achieve it in one 90-minute Zoom session. However, let's also agree that today is yet another really strong and positive step in the right direction. So let's just quickly talk about budgeting just for a very short moment. Just like in my own life, budgeting is a complicated set of considerations, right? I can't afford everything I want in my own life, so I make thoughtful trade-offs as I go. When it comes to our community, if we want more or better services than what we can currently afford, then we could choose to pay a little more in taxes to afford them. Those are decisions that we need to make. The bottom line is that city budgets are just big versions of our own personal budgets. So please, for the next 90 minutes, bring your life experience and your budgeting acumen to this discussion as well. So that's the why we're here. Mayor and council, City Manager Ortega and his team want this budget process to be participatory. That's the why. 3 goals for the time that we're going to spend together. 1, we want to hear from you. The mayor said it. In addition to Mayor Romero, we've got reps from several of the city departments. All of them are here to listen and learn from your perspectives and your priorities. Second, goal for today is to learn. We want to make sure that we level set a shared understanding of the various services that the city currently provides. So we'll have speakers that will address those. And then third, our objective is to advance equity. And I want to just take a quick tangent, sidebar here, to just focus on this notion of equity, because sometimes we conflate equity, equality, all kind of mushes together. So I just want to level set to what we're talking about. Lane, do I have the ability to share my screen? Of course we do, because that's what Lane Handle does. So here, can you see this slide? You see a slide with some bikes on it? We are there. Okay. Here, what you're looking at is something that very simply depicts equality. Equality simply means I give everyone the same thing. I'm equal in what I deliver. In this case, it's a bike. So looking left to right, does that thing that I deliver, embodying my commitment to equality, does it meet the needs of all of the people I'm giving it to? The answer clearly is no. If I'm in a wheelchair, the bike you just gave me not so useful. If I'm very tall, it may not work. For the third person, it works perfectly. And if I'm teeny weeny, the bike you just gave me is somewhat awkward to use. So let's look at then the notion of equity. Equity very simply says, I give the bike that fits the needs of the person I'm giving it to. If mobility is our objective, then in this scenario, I give the bike that makes sense for the person I give it to. So that's the difference between equity and equality, right? Third, here's just a slightly different way to look at it. On the first, because we've got this thing in the way, that's the fence. Equality says I give everyone a box to elevate them so they can see over the fence. Doesn't work for everybody, right? Equity, remember, says I give the boxes to those that need them. I give services to those that need them in order so that everyone can achieve the end result. The third, justice, is sort of the place that let's all strive to get to. That simply says there will be a day when we actually eliminate the structural barrier that created the inequity in the first place. So in this case, we built a new fence that then takes away the injustice that that was there originally. So that's really the difference. Just want to level set those. The mayor and council are really deeply committed to the notion of equity. So as we go through today, I want to encourage you to think about the services that you hear about, and are there ways in which we can be more equitable, that is, deliver in a way that honors the needs of every Tucsonan that we are striving and seeking to help. So that's it, right? 3 goals: to hear from you, for all of us to learn a little, and thirdly, to advance equity through this budgeting process. Finally, let's just turn to the how. Today's focus, Mayor Romero said it, it is on resilient recovery. Let's hear it for that, because it means we're through the worst of it. So first, we'll hear from city leaders and community leaders on 4 different topics, so you have a common understanding of services. Then we're going to ask you to prioritize the importance of the various services that we hear about. And then finally, we're going to have lots of open discussion. So let's get going. Ready? Any questions so far? I'm either doing an outstanding job or you're getting tired of my voice. Both are equally possible. To get us started, we've got, where did she go? Elaine, not a good time to leave. Are you gonna do a walk-on song? Okay, there she is. So to get us started, Elaine
I
Becker,
apologize. I had to turn the lights on.
you may have formally known her or recognized her as the mayor's chief of staff. She was that up until just under a month ago, when she's been now a volunteer. So I think with the kind of time she's putting in, she's actually vying to be volunteer of the month at the city of Tucson. So she's going to kick us off. Then we'll hear, following Elaine, we'll learn about economic and workforce development. Then we'll roll into tourism. Finally, we'll end up with open spaces and wellness. So Elaine, welcome. Take it.
Thank you, Poonam. Lane Mandel, I am ready for my first slide.
Would you be so kind as to make me the host?
For us. See, I'm supposed to do that, and she's so kind because she said, would you make me the host? What she really meant is you forgot to make me the host. That's how kind Elaine Mandel is. Thank you. Got it now?
Do you guys see them?
We do.
Okay, we can go to the next, Lane. Thank you so much. So good evening, Tucson. Really so happy to be here and joining you for this town hall. These initial images and concepts are meant to truly frame the specifics that the next 3 presenters will discuss, and really to further link and tell the story between the previous 3 budget town halls that have highlighted the direct core services that the city provides, and how the city has and will continue to pivot and adjust after last year. The city at every level is truly working to improve, enhance, and sustain the community's quality of life. And in order to do that, the recovery plan that they and we are envisioning must be envisioned through the lens of resiliency, so that the recovery is sustainable. The city is embedding their resiliency into their recovery plans in 2 ways. One, through a place-based approach, and through people-centered methods. So for example, Tucson, our place is our culture, our history, our environment, our people, our arts, and our creativity. Examples of how we've already been doing this is through our community safety pilot program. Pardon me, I'm trying to, there we go. So examples of how we've already been doing this are through the community safety pilot program, through Move Tucson, and through the current budget process that is underway. Next. So I can't see the slides, Lane. I'm having a little bit of difficulty.
We can see them just fine, Lane. We can see them, Elaine.
You can.
Yeah,
I just don't have a visual of where.
it says urban resilience is the capacity of city systems. That's the slide that's up now.
Bugger. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so you're on the second slide with the beautiful A mountain. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yes.
Thanks, Mike. Urban resilience is the capacity of a city's systems, businesses, institutions, communities, and individuals to survive, adapt, and grow, no matter what stresses and shocks they experience. And I think that that really summarizes what we and the city and the community are working towards, and that's from the Resilient Cities Network. So place, culture, and history. Keeping our sense of place is vital and important to us as a community. Bringing to light our history and highlighting it, strengthening our identity. Place keeping while also place making. One example of this is the Santa Cruz River Heritage Project that restored flowing water to the Santa Cruz after a 100-year absence. Downtown has been home to 4,000 years of continuous human habitation and to North America's earliest known instances of irrigated agriculture. People throughout the region contribute to the $23 billion impact agribusiness has on Arizona's economy. The city of Tucson's City of Gastronomy designation is not just about restaurants. It's about connecting and sharing Tucson, our experiences, ideas, and best practices for cultural, agricultural, social, and economic development with the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization Network of Creative Cities and others around the world. Next. Place, people, and environment. We value the diversity of people and our environment. The Santa Cruz Valley Heritage Area, which was designated by Congress in 2019, is an area that recognizes the rich history, natural and cultural resources, and heritage of the Santa Cruz River watershed. This designation is also an opportunity for us as a region to stimulate economic development by not only attracting visitors to the region, but by also encouraging the local economy to visit, enjoy, and preserve these heritage designations. Tucson Meet Yourself, our community and regional events, and our natural resources that we all enjoy. Next. The arts and creativity. We are and we will continue to support and invest in legacy businesses as we continue to recover, as we continue throughout the recovery and as it evolves. We are reimagining the small business concierge. We have a facade restoration program that supports small local businesses, and we are protecting our cultural resources. The city of Tucson, just a couple months ago, joined the Reopen Entertainment Venues Safely cohort. It's a national cohort of pilot cities that are sharing strategies and resources to best position our community to reopen safely live music venues. Next. So place, this is us. Our recovery will be site-specific to Tucson. Next. Tucson's recovery has begun and will continue through place-based and people-centered methods. Again, these are things that we inherently know, but it is a moment for us to pause and acknowledge them together as a community. For us, place is our culture, our environment, our heritage, history, our people, and our creativity. And with that framework, I will pass it over to the city's Director of Economic Initiatives, Barbara Coffey.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Elaine. And you set me up perfectly for the comments I'm about to make, because truly you did describe the quality of life and quality of place and how those impact what we do in economic development. So happy to be here. I just want to briefly talk about why we do economic development and what that looks like, so that again, we're kind of all on the same page. But there were years ago, I would say in past decades, when we looked at recruiting companies, creating jobs by recruiting companies in order to do economic development as we know it, which would then attract workers and employees and more people, and then the quality of life would follow. But I would tell you now, and given Elaine's remarks, you can see why, that it's the other way around now. We really focus on creating our place and creating a place where people want to live and work and recreate. And we do that, which then attracts the talent. They want to be part of a place that's significant with its history, with its culture, with arts, that inspires creativity and innovation. And so retaining and recruiting talent is then what attracts the companies. And so that gives you a picture of sort of how, you know, economic development might have been viewed a few decades ago, and how important and how it has changed to now, and with emphasis on the things that you saw in the images to start our time together. Next slide, please. So how do we do that in a day-to-day operational mode? Well, there are about 5 things you're going to see here that I think are most important in the day-to-day activities of economic development. We are always doing something in each one of these areas at all times. So we're looking at attracting new business. We are always looking at retaining and expanding existing enterprises. And I will tell you that 80% of your new jobs in a community come from the businesses that are already here, right here in Tucson. So we're very much focused on helping our existing businesses thrive. And then small business and entrepreneurial development. How do we grow our own? How do we cultivate business right here in Tucson so that they can then become the ones that start businesses and employ people and put people to work? Then we look at redevelopment, and that is about not letting any of the areas in our city that are aging over time fall into decline. We want all areas of our community to come up, to be lifted up, and to be enhanced, and in all of the things that you saw in those images, again, to experience the best in order to make that quality of place a reality. And then finally, annexation is another way that we grow our city and grow our tax base. And so all of these things are important in successful economic development strategies for local government. Next slide, please. So how do we set ourselves apart? So this is where I just share with you Tucson's competitive advantage. There are things that we talk about every day when we're talking to companies about how they can be successful by choosing Tucson as a place to grow their business. And so, you know, some of the things we talked about already, that quality of life and place is so important, but it's the workforce that's here. Again, having the available workers with the skills that are needed for those companies to be successful. And then access in the position that we are, our geography in the United States, in this Western region in particular, our proximity to the ports in LA, our proximity to Mexico, and the advantage that is. And then the low cost of doing business. How do we really make the bottom line important for those businesses and so that they can be successful and continue to grow? Next slide, please. So those are all those things that are going for us, but here are all the accolades that we enjoy. And over time, you see how from the last 5 or 6 years, how we continue to add those great things that put us on those high-ranking lists and that get us the national exposure and that really create the buzz about Tucson so that people not only feel good about staying here and growing, but also attract others around them. And you're going to hear from some great partners in that, not only parks, but again, Visit Tucson and others that help us make this happen. Because it doesn't happen by accident. It happens with a concerted and focused effort in these things. So when we talk about becoming an up and coming tech market, we're building at the startup level. We're building entrepreneurs and supporting them. When we talk about a city of gastronomy, we're talking about cultivating an exciting food scene and heritage tourism and things like that. And that helps us attract the talent that, again, is going to help attract those companies. So next slide, please. So a picture of our workforce, which as I said, when companies are choosing a location, the first thing they want to know is, can they find the skilled labor that they need? So just taking a look at the numbers, you can see that we do have a very well-educated population. We have over 1 million people in our population to draw from, and that workforce population is over 500,000 people. When we look at universities and how important they are to anchor our private companies and institutions, we know because they graduate those folks, they have the skills, they bring up the folks whether out of community college or the university, to move into the workplace and help us grow those companies. So it's very important. And when we see research and development expenditures on the magnitude of 700 million, it should be a year, then that speaks to that tier 1 research qualification that nationally allows us to be a competitor when we're talking about attracting companies that are looking at us against places like Seattle and Denver and places in California, in addition to cities like Las Vegas or Albuquerque. We want to be at the top of the list, and we want to attract the best and brightest. And Pima Community College, with its 7 centers of excellence, provides the foundation for that and provides customized workforce training. So at every level, we have to be focused on supporting economic and workforce development programs for that purpose. Next slide, please. I just want to take a second and talk about how this past year, since we are focused on resiliency, what have we learned over the past 12 months? It's been phenomenal. Something like we've never seen before. And here's where, in just a quick recap, you can kind of see the big ideas and how they translate. So when we talk about a focus on climate change and the fact that our mayor and council are at the helm, leading the forefront with a climate action plan and a goal to be net zero by 2030, it translates well. It brings a focus and attention on clean energy and renewable energy, and companies that will orient themselves around that want to be in a community that's committed to those same things. And with the recent changes with the pandemic, we saw the migration of people leaving a more congested place like LA or Boston or in New York City and looking for a mid-sized city like Tucson to locate in. So they had the best of both. They have access to gainful employment, but they also have quality of place and quality of life. So it's a trend that we're going to continue to see. What we've learned from being in quarantine and having to change, we learned quickly, and right here at the city of Tucson, we were no differently. How do we do business remotely? And so you're an example of that right now in what we've learned and how we've learned to create town halls and activities where people can still engage. It wasn't easy. There were bumps along the way, but we got it done, and we've catapulted ourselves into almost a new century with all of the remote inspections and digital plan reviews and the things that make development and job creation much easier. It's also shown us a flexibility in the workplace and that ability to have work-life balance. It's taught us, I think, across the country how that's going to be important, and how it translates to economic development. Maybe a change in the way we see facilities in the future. Maybe the office environment will look a little bit different. Also, this past year, social inequity has been magnified by the events across the country. So at the Tucson level, and you heard this talked about in Mayor Romero's opening remarks, is that we're focused on equity at all across the board and interdepartmentally. So each one of us looks in our own department and division activities and says, how are we going to help everyone find what they need and the tools they need to be successful? So when we talk about a renewed focus on diversity and equity and inclusion, those are the things that are important right here at the local level. And this economic crisis has created a chance for companies to rethink how they find access to vendors and supplies and customers, and needing customers to be closer and vendors to be closer so they can serve those customers. Think about all the e-commerce, the shopping at home that you've been doing. All of that has increased, and it will continue to drive many of the transportation and logistics industries that we'll see here. And then finally, the pandemic has also brought about renewed interest in many of our biotech and medical tech companies, right? So we just announced most recently a new sterilization facility. BD has chosen Tucson as its headquarters. That is something you're going to continue to see as we take more control right here at home in terms of the country, as well as in our region and locally, access to quality healthcare and medical device. Next slide, please. So we don't do it alone. We don't do it in a vacuum or a silo. We do it with all of our partners. And so this is just a slide to show you that, and it's not exhaustive by all means, but it just gives you a sense of there are a lot of important partners in economic development and workforce development, and we need each one of them. And so we're all working together in concert and leveraging the activities that we do and helping each other so that we can stretch our dollars and make it work more effectively. Next slide, please. So to round things out, just as you look at economic development right here at the city of Tucson, and how we compare to our competitive set of cities of about 500,000 plus, you can see that between Mesa and Albuquerque, twice and maybe 3 times the amount of budget and human capital for the work that goes on. So Tucson is building its program, and I was so pleased to be able to join this team, and I'm glad Mike Ortega is here to see, hear some of this, because it's a thrill to work with a community that has an emphasis on economic development, and to be able to do what I do and have the support of mayor and council makes my job easy. So over the last 2 years, we've touched and created more than 3,800 jobs. Again, not by any means exclusive of or exhaustive of all the jobs created in the city. Many more come through our city that I don't get a chance to talk to or touch. But this shows you sort of what our team of 5.5 people are working on. 7 annexation agreements and more than 300 some acres added to the city with that. Incentive agreements for some of those job creation projects with $687 million of capital attracted from that activity. And then touching over 700, almost 750 people during this pandemic year alone when it comes to answering small business hotline calls and trying to answer questions to support business growth. When we do that in so many ways, it was quite fun this year with our webinar program and the extension of how many businesses we were able to reach. So with that, next slide, I will introduce a partner, one of our partners in crime, but not really a crime, that you all probably have seen him out and about because he is everywhere and all things visit Tucson, the Executive Vice President, Felipe Garcia. Felipe?
Thank you, Barbara, and good afternoon, everyone. Great to see you. Sorry that I'm not in Tucson right now. My CFO told me that I had to take vacation, so I took 3 days off with my family. I did something very wrong. We have a saying in Visit Tucson. We had family from Mexico coming to town to visit us. And we always say, even though you love them, doesn't mean you have to stay with them, send them to an hotel. But they knew my house was going to be available, so they're staying at my house. I wanted to generate tax dollars to the community, but again, they didn't follow my recommendations. But anyway, it's great to see many of you, many partners. And I want to give very brief and tell you about what is Visit Tucson, what we do. And people sometimes don't understand what a tourism office does and what Visit Tucson does. So I'm going to go very briefly in some of our key projects that we work throughout the year. So next slide, please, Lane. So some of the things that we do is we go and we talk to television networks and we tell them about what a great place Tucson is to do, to film a TV show, a reality show. Hopefully you watch Netflix. There's a new show called Tiny Creatures. The first episode filmed in Tucson. And what happens there is we have television crews coming to town, many locals employed. They stay at hotels, they stay at restaurants. And it's amazing what the money they spend in our community. To give you an idea, we have a few months ago about 5 different commercials for sneaker shoes, for tennis shoes. And the commercial for a tennis shoe will be 30 seconds on television, maybe 1 minute on social media, but they'll stay about 10 days in Tucson and bring a crew of 20 people. And again, we'll stay in a hotel and spend money. And it's a great way also for people to just fall in love with the community when they see Discovery Channel, a television show about Tucson. That's a great way to connect with people and potential visitors. Len, can we go to the next slide? Another thing we do is we talk to influencers of television. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure you're fans of drive-ins, dive-ins, and dives. And Guy Fieri, that he goes around the United States talking about these great restaurants. I'm kidding you not that we worked over 1 year of constant communication with his team to ask him, plead him to come to Tucson and do a TV show. Finally, he came. And if you know an accountant that works for one of the restaurants that was featured on Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives, ask them what was the economic impact of having that show on their television. It's just phenomenal. The other show that we brought 2 times to Tucson, Patty's Mexican Table, and we've built an amazing collaboration with her that she came twice already to film in our community. And what is great is that when when we do postings on social media, we put something about Tucson many times on her own. She's making quite a comment saying, oh yeah, it's great. I love being there. Oh, Tucson is amazing. The relationship again and what we be able to do for our business is amazing. Let me tell you, with Patty, for example, the last episode, she came and she talked to Don Guerra at Barrio Bread, and she went back and she started kneading dough and she made bread. It was phenomenal. A few weeks later, I'm one of those Saturday morning people waiting in line to get bread with Don Guerra. And the gentleman in front of me, I just hear him talking to Don saying, hey, I'm from Austin. I'm also on my way to California to see my family. Saw the television show from Patty 2 weeks ago. And I said, I have to stop in Tucson. I have to come and get your bread. So he bought like 5 loaves of bread and he has other places. He was going to spend 2 days in Tucson going around. That's why we bring these shows. It's a way to actually get people to fall in love to our destination and come here and spend money. Lane, can we go to the next slide? But also we do a lot of advertising. We use a lot of technology with TripAdvisor, Google Ads, Expedia, a lot of technology to find a way how we can connect to visitors. And if you go link to the next slide, so this is an example. Let me tell you what we've done. So Chicago, imagine you're a Chicago resident and it's February and you're covered in snow. You've been shoveling snow for the last 2 months. It's going to be about 18 degrees. So you go to the L's train and you see this Tucson train and you're like, you scratch your head. You're like, what should I do now? And then you go to your computer and check the weather in Chicago to see the weekend. And all of a sudden a video of Tucson pops up. And the moment that video pops up on weather.com, we put a picture on that computer. And we know if that individual that saw the Tucson ad bought an airline ticket to come to Tucson. So we want to make sure that what we're doing to promote and advertise is finding a way to bring people to our community. Len, can we go to the next slide? Another important thing, and Barbara was talking about it, it's we talk to journalists about Tucson. I mean, journalists, they're always looking for ideas, inspiration. These stories, Condé Nast Magazine, Afar, Travel and Leisure, all of those were initiated by our staff that we conducted with journalists that we have a relationship with, that we work in the past with. Sometimes we bring them to Tucson, depending on every publication is different. And we actually are pitching stories. And let me tell you something that I've never seen happen. And this is about 3 years ago, I think, when El Güero Canelo received a James Beard in Chicago. So we're in Chicago and we're having dinner with these journalists. And she told us literally, says, hey guys, my editor at the Chicago Tribune told me to stop the Tucson stories. There's too much coverage right now about Tucson. And we're like, that never happened before. We're always trying to fight for stories about Tucson. So a journalist told us, hey, you are changing the perception of journalism in the US. You used to be an unknown destination. Now you're an undiscovered destination. And people are eager on that undiscovery. Lane, can we go to the next one? But we also help to bring sports here. We partner with, for example, FC Tucson to bring amateur competition, professional sport to train. We have professional Korean baseball tournaments coming here. And again, this is people with money in their pockets that stay at hotels, go out dining, and it's great for economic development. Let me give you another example of why this is important to us. So my kids, when they were younger, they were used to play tennis at Randolph. And I remember one weekend, I had in my mind that I was going to go and have Sonora hot dogs at BK. And I told my wife, it's, hey, Saturday BK. So we go to the tournament and they told us, well, you have a few minutes only. So change of plans. We had to go to Say's Kitchen downtown and it was perfect. Now I spend, I think, what, 35, 40 bucks there. Did that tournament brought $40 of economic impact? Well, no, it was displacement. It took $40 that I was going to spend in BK and just put it in Say's. But there was this family from Scottsdale that came down to Tucson with more in their pockets. They stayed in a hotel. They came with us to Say's Kitchen. Those were fresh dollars that came to Tucson. And that's the beauty about tourism. Let's go to the next slide, please. And we also talk about events. Events are a great way to bring people here. The Mariachi Conference, I mean, that's a magical event that people don't know that it got started. So Guadalajara is the mariachi capital of the world. People in Guadalajara came to Tucson to ask us for advice and guidance how to do Mariachi Conference. I mean, I scratch my head still. That's how important it is for a community. Also, procession. Nelda, I saw her, I think she's participating today here from Tucson Meet Yourself. Those are great ways to bring economic development to our community. If we go to the next slide, and I have just a couple of more to go. Another thing we do is we have two offices in Mexico. People don't realize that every year, and this is of course an off year because of the pandemic and the border has been partially closed, but every year 23 million times people from Mexico enter to visit the state of Arizona. I'm going to repeat that again, 23 million times. And they're spending $1 billion with a B every single year in Pima County, in our metro region. So I'm pretty sure that if you go to Tucson Mall and Park Place, you'll see all those license plates from Sonora, those Suburbans packed with things. We want to make sure that they're coming here and spending money. Those are tax dollars that are staying here in Tucson. And we go to the next slide, please, Lane. But also another important feature is we work with conventions, meetings, groups, jam shows. We partner with the city. That's almost a year-round job to be able to work with the jam shows, but any events, group associations. So what we do is also we go and talk to associations and we ask them, hey, bring your event to Tucson. And we go and give them incentives. We fly them sometimes if we know that we can get that piece of business here to our community. So that's what is great. These are again large groups that are coming here to Tucson to spend money. So if we go to the next slide, this is the why we do it. And it's that economic impact is the number of dollars that are spent by visitors in our community. And just let me go to the last line item, $139 million in tax receipts. That's crucial to our community, to our city, to our county, to our state government as well. So every individual, if we had no tourists, every individual in Tucson, we will have to pay $530 additionally in property taxes, in other taxes, to make off visitation if we have no visitation coming here to Tucson. And last slide, please, Lane. So this is what the investment and the partnership that we have with the city of Tucson, this is how it pays off. These are numbers, and let me give you the second line, meetings, economic impact. These are meetings that we visit Tucson, our staff were able to bring to Tucson. If the JW Marriott and their team brought an event by themselves, we don't count it because it was not initiated by us. We're very careful that we only count events that we were able to bring to Tucson, that we have a contract that was signed, that actually they came and they materialized it. So we work with every hotel in Tucson to go and bring those tourists and those events here to our community. Let me give you an example. We just closed a piece of business. Mr. Ortega, Mayor, we're very happy in the month of May that is going to bring 5,000 room nights to Tucson. And again, it was a piece of business that we went out. We talked to this individual in the East Coast. They loved it. They say, "Oh my gosh, you have peers like you in other cities," because we always have a hard time. Someone that will give us quotes and secure business and said, "Hey, anytime come to Tucson, we'll welcome you every single time to come here." So we are responsible to bring $200 million to our community. And that's a great investment. And just on my closing remark, and many people, you might think, and other communities have thought that, they say, well, Tucson's beautiful. I mean, those pictures that Elaine showed us, I mean, come on. Why do we market? Why do we advertise? People just come because we're beautiful. And I agree, we're an amazing destination. There's no other place like this in the world. But if we don't tell our story, someone else is telling it for us. And it's luring, taking business away from us. Our friends in Colorado, several years ago, they decided to do that. They say, hey, Colorado, come on, Denver, where everyone knows Colorado. So let's just not advertise, let's not promote tourism. That exactly same year, tourism fell more than 20% in their community. Then they invested twice the money, but it took them 3 years to recover their losses. So I think that's a case that everyone in the United States have seen. Competition is fierce, but again, we know that tourism is a great way to bring economic development, that resiliency to Tucson, and that recovery that we may need. So that being said, I'm going to turn it back to our rest of our panelists and moderator.
Great. Felipe, thank you. I hope someday you get excited about Tucson. It would really help with your success, I suspect. So Laura, handing the baton to you.
Great, thank you so much. So my name is Laura Hamway, and I think this might be one of the few last weeks I can say I'm your new Parks Director. I'm 3 months here in Tucson. And you know what was just striking for me as I listened to Elaine and then Barbara and then Felipe is I saw a lot of the images and a lot of the data and a lot of the information about Tucson that when I was in the process of being interviewed for this position and really trying to learn about the city, a lot of the information that helped me to figure out that this was really a great spot for me to come to. I lived in Miami for the last 20 years. This is certainly a huge change of climate and culture for me and my husband, but I love Tucson so far, and I have had such a great time exploring it. And selfishly, I am extremely excited to be talking about reopening and our resilience, because it is a little challenging to be a new resident when things are more closed down. But I'm ready, and just like I'm sure many of you are, that as we reopen, to get back into the swing of things and enjoy everything that is really unique and true to Tucson. But in terms of our Parks and Recreation Department, as I have learned what they have done in the last year, they truly have been a great example of resiliency. When you think about the fact that we had to shelter in place, and a lot of the movement within the city was less than what we were normally used to, the staff were really challenged. How do we pivot? How do we grow our resources and extend beyond welcoming people into a recreation center or even into a park in the early days, and keep on our engagement and creating that sense of place when it comes to parks? Parks really became essential. Some of our very quick facts are 261 virtual rec sessions. And a lot of those were focused on those with special needs that we serve in our therapeutic session. They still needed stimulation. They needed to still keep their social connections with their peers and with the counselors that they work with here, right next door to my building, in fact. And so I think it was an admirable pivot that the staff were able to do to keep that going. And then we worked with a lot of the ward offices and other local partners to do drive-through events that provided people still that sense of Halloween and Christmas, and recently Easter. And also grab and go kits where you could bring recreation activities home and do them as a family. And we know too, virtual school became a huge thing, and for some was a challenge. We had to figure out, how do we provide some resiliency for parents that really couldn't stay home with their children and still keep them in school. And so that's how KidCo Reimagined came about, where we partnered with the school systems and we provided the staff so we could facilitate virtual school within the school buildings. And that way we were able to keep 240 kids engaged and participating within the school year. And I think that is a tremendous accomplishment. And as we've reopened, we've been able to have pools open for lap swimming and restore outdoor and leisure classes. And most recently in February, and I got to be here for it, launch our new mobile rec program called Ready, Set, Rec, that has already served 1,000 residents in the first 5 weeks. And I think it's just a lot of the feedback that we have gotten shows how much parks serves our community. And in terms of trying to define those place making details, that health and social connection, learning from each other, staying connected to our communities, and also appreciating the nature and outdoors are critical things that our residents enjoy and appreciate when it comes to our parks. Some of the other successes that we've had in the last year is that we didn't slow down when it came to capital. And that I think is critical, because then as we're reopening, that means when people return to parks, whether it's a facility or to the outdoor environment, they're gonna experience completely new things. We just launched or unveiled 12 new pickleball courts over at Udall. We've resurfaced basketball courts. We've added shade over playgrounds so that this summer they'll be much more tolerable for you to go out and play and use them. We also have a new splash pad that we're going to celebrate opening April 19th over at Clemens. So a lot of this, though, is really important because we've been talking about economic impact. All of those projects that we've been able to complete, and even vendors that we've been able to engage for repairs that my staff themselves have led, means that we kept local vendors, some of them small, some of them large, engaged and employed. We maintained the ability for them to keep their employees working through a pandemic, through a tough time. And so when Elaine talked about us being resilient and making sure that we were keeping ourselves very relevant and present, a lot of our capital improvements ensured that. And we also looked to parks to how could we serve for COVID-19 responses. And that included from mass giveaways to facilitating over 90,000 tests being facilitated, COVID tests being facilitated through Udall Park and El Pueblo Park. And now those two parks are being used as vaccine locations, and we have other partners that we're working with to do pop-up vaccine locations at other parks. And I think that that's critical because we know that parks are very central to our communities. They are the gateway to access to services. And so I'm proud of that. We're able to do that and continue to partner with local resources to bring those services directly into the community. And also too, we deployed 84 staff to other areas of the city. And so that also meant that we kept them employed. So a lot of the whole economic impact and resiliency still ties to employment, keeping people employed, keeping them engaged, giving them the confidence that when the pandemic had passed, they would come back to parks, resume the activities that they were doing before. But while we needed them, we helped by placing them in other departments to help with those services that now needed extra support during the period of time that the pandemic put us through. Next slide. So as we look to the year ahead, and we're all here, it's a budget town hall and talking about how are we gonna continue to be resilient and how are we gonna continue to recover? And also what lessons have we learned? I think tonight is a great example of one of those lessons that sometimes in-person community meetings, at least my experience in my prior role, could sometimes be very poorly attended. People are very busy. They're scrambling to get out of work and make dinner and put the kids to bed. But a virtual meeting like tonight allows us to have now that extra level of engagement opportunity. So we plan on keeping a lot of our virtual meetings, but also virtual programs as a way of connecting. And also looking at that equity lens, how can we expand outdoor classes and free access to programs? Where have we not done a lot of programming? Where can we bring new programming? And then as we start to see those numbers of participation, we can figure out how do we enhance them and make programming better for all. And also maximizing partnerships. Certainly we have partnered with a lot of people in the last year, and I'm hoping that we can then pivot those partnerships into new opportunities, not just for services and programs, but ways that we can combine our common goals, like the YMCA. Recently, I had a conversation with how we can work together to bring new recreation opportunities to the parks where we overlap. And also keeping parks as your access to support services. We have a new program called Meet Me at the Park. It's a free recreation opportunity, 16-week program that we're doing just to test and see what the community response would be to free programs being held outdoors. And we're really hoping to learn from that experience and figure out how can we grow it. And then what kind of feedback do you as residents tell us so that we can say, okay, let's duplicate this type of class at this particular time for this particular age group so that we make sure that we are serving all. In terms of funding, investment in trees, investment in our KidCo program, adding in STREAM, which a lot of people are familiar with STEM, but STREAM is science, technology, recreation, engineering, arts, and math. And how do we engage kids in our recreation environment and expose them to the world of science and engineering, and that there's career paths that they present. And it's so exciting to see kids really engage and connect. And so we want to try and embrace some new curriculums for our staff so they can start to reimagine KidCo in a different way, continue in that reimagining that we started at the beginning of the pandemic. And we're also focused on health, looking at new fitness courts and how do we have equitable free health, wellness, and obesity prevention programs, and how do we reinvest in our parks. Our parks are older. We have 130 of them, and we have Prop 407 right now that is investing and allowing us to improve our parks. But I'm really trying to put a mind's eye to doing needs assessments and really learning how people use their parks and want to use their parks. And that ties into the whole place-making discussion, so that as we look at developing our parks and Prop 407 brings around master plans for the parks, we make sure that we program them the way that you want to use them. So really excited about tonight because I'm here to listen. I'm here to answer questions, but I'm also here to get a sense of how you would like to see parks maintain their resiliency, and as we reopen, perhaps bring new services and opportunities for you all. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm truly honored to be here, to also allow you to get to know me since I am a new face. And with that, I will pass it back over to Poonam.
Laura, welcome home. Welcome home. And yes, you are 3 months in. You cannot say I'm the new one anymore. Got medical benefits. You're through probation. Too much. Yep. I learned Stream. That was fascinating. And I can tell in the chat a lot of things about you. First, that there was some profound resonance that many of you felt around the whole notion of place-based, place as defined very broadly as inclusive of culture, heritage, the picture, I mean, all of it. Like I could feel it. And certainly the chat demonstrated it as well. Before we put you to work and have you sort of take a look at some of the services and prioritize them, as those of you that have been here before know we're going to do, I just want to stop because, you know, equity is a huge and deep and authentic priority for this city, for your elected leadership, for your staff leadership. It's a big deal. And there were several of you, I think, Tammy, you made the first observation, but then there was a little bit of, yeah, me too, from Anita, J. Emmanuel, Miranda, and this entire notion of as we are resilient, as we succeed, are we potentially leaving anyone behind, right? Call it gentrification, call it too much change too fast. And what I saw in the chat was there were some really extraordinarily wonderful things that the city is doing, mindful that that is something that warrants managing it. But I wanted to see if there was anyone from the city that wanted to sort of summarize verbally for us, because there was sort of a listing of different kinds of ways in which we're trying to be helpful and equitable. So I just wanted to see if anyone wanted to step in there.
Poonam, I see the mayor's hand up though.
Oh,
Go ahead, Barbara. Go ahead, Barbara.
Okay, well, just real quickly, as we know, and you and I were together along with the mayor and council members early in January talking about the Central Business District. So just from the development standpoint, I can tell you that our mayor and council and our management team and our staff are working on ways to drive development such that it's sustainable and equitable, and in the use of our incentive programs to do that, right? To be effective in that manner and to be helpful, not hurtful, right? To be smart but sustainable in a variety of ways. And so that Central Business District conversation is the most recent example of how we've made some changes.
Mayor Romero has her hand up.
Yeah, no, and I would add that, yes, we had an amazing conversation as a community, more than 7 meetings, and there's still conversation happening. That mayor and council gave direction to Barbara, and that's how we met Poonam. She's the one that helped facilitate that conversation. Mayor and council created also a Housing and Equitable Development Commission. We appointed a diverse representation of the community. And so that is front and center. Equity, as Poonam said, is something that this mayor and council takes very, very seriously. And so as we try and develop a people-centered economy, a community-centered economy. That is one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure that we gave you all the opportunity to give us your feedback and input and concerns, like Tammy did just right now. And I just wanted to add that Mayor and Council put back into small businesses more than $14 million in grants to help them through the pandemic, because we heard from others that many legacy businesses closed their doors. And so those funds were out there through the YWCA, through the We Are One Somos Uno Resiliency Fund. And so a lot of small businesses didn't make it through, but we're hoping that we can create small business navigators within the Economic Initiatives Office, and that we have a special focus, one that has a special focus on helping legacy businesses survive.
It's great. And I will just, as an outsider, make the observation that the actions taken by mayor and council and the city related to the issue of equity is unlike anything I've seen in other cities that I work with. It is not easy work, right? That is why your participation is so important. And my strong encouragement to all of you as we the people is offer the ideas, right? Offer the ideas, because we're all sort of trying to do something that's never been done. Otherwise, we would be in a totally just world, right? And so offer the ideas. And it's I just love you all for caring as much about it as you do, because that's going to be the best harbinger of success ahead for you as you go to this glorious place-based, people-centered, resilient future. Okay, time. No more sitting around looking good. We're going to put you to work. So we've got I want you to go to a device. Could be a phone or open another browser tab, but go to the website called menti.com, MENTI.com. Those of you that are frequent flyers, you know what we're about to do. Menti.com. And when you get in there, what's the code to put in? Oh, there it is. So once you've accessed menti.com, the code to put in is 8 digits, 9252 2984. 9252 2984. And then what you should see here is the questions. We've heard about what is possible in a resilient recovery. And now we're going to give you a list of the various kinds of services that are important in creating a resilient recovery. And we're going to ask you to prioritize those. And then we've also helped you like a restaurant menu key by giving you $1, $2, or $3 signs for relative costs. So this is with one of you who have answered so far. So on the bottom right, you can see how many people. So one person has some very clear views, and they're also in a race. Take your time. Take your time. Be thoughtful. Although the one person that did it really fast, that's amazing. With about half of you responding, clearly your devotion to legacy businesses is revealing. So there's 17, there's almost 40 on the call. So if I take out the city staff, we still have a few more, I think, that we haven't heard from. So I'm going to give you a minute. We want to hear from you. Yeah, there's sort of a pattern of the top 4 or 5 that are revealing and a bottom 4 or 5 that are revealing, right? So Lane and Charlene, do you feel like you're comfortable enough that we have a pattern that is useful to you?
Yes, thank you.
Because it does look like, so here's what in this conversation right here on April is it the 8th? Yes. At 6:38 p.m. Here's what is true. Among the 23 of you that responded, a couple of top 2, there's sort of a top 2, invest in maintaining our legacy businesses. That matters a lot. And that hasn't changed from the first response. Increase small business technical support with outreach to Spanish-speaking business owners. So there's really a strong desire to grow and build our own, rescue our own, build our own, cultivate our own. So as we, I think that says it pretty clearly. Third, tied for third, update the city's comprehensive economic development strategy and invest in the arts and creative endeavors. Followed pretty closely by invest in open spaces and make parks more accessible for your family. Great, thank you. Okay, open discussion. Let's just open it up. You can see this. Any reaction? Anyone have surprised by anything that they've seen or feel particularly strongly about one of these that they want to bring into this conversation to convince their neighbors? What stood out for any of you? So as the mayor, council, and city leaders go through this, what advice would you give them? What should have been on this list in terms of contemplating a place-based, people-centered future, but wasn't on here that you wanted to see on here?
I have a quick question.
Please ask it.
I joined the meeting a little late, so I'm not sure if you've covered this already, but could you elaborate a little bit on the increased financial incentives to encourage redevelopment along commercial corridors?
Certainly. Elia, welcome. Whatever time you get here is when the meeting starts, so we're glad you're here. Barbara, do you want to take that? And then
Absolutely.
Michael, I'll come
Yes.
to you next. I just want you to know I know you're there.
So just this year, we rolled out what we call our visual improvement program, and it's designed for helping small business and property owners along our commercial corridors, in particular our aging commercial corridors, with some of those exterior improvements that they can do to bring a renewed, fresh face to their business. So that fresh coat of paint, some lighting, a new sign, all of those things help help a business, because their building is their best advertisement. So a visual improvement program is our matching grant program. So dollar for dollar, so that we both, the city and the business, have some participation in that, up to $20,000 for a max grant. And so we have received a number of applications already that we're working through, and hope to see some of those visual improvements realized by the end of this year. So thanks for asking.
Did that answer it, Elia?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Hi, Michael. Welcome.
Hello. I admit my heart, my mind, and my soul was leaning towards startup culture, if you will. But when someone mentioned in the chat about legacy, maybe my thoughts will lean in both directions, if you will, forward and backward. And Barbara, you were talking about the small business and entrepreneurial development portion of all of this. I'd like to see something head towards, if you remember, Gangplank and Collab, because I used to hang out with those people all the time. Those are people who have interest and passion and desire, if you will, but what they lack are sometimes skills and resources and funds and knowledge, that kind of thing. So maybe in that regard, as far as businesses, old and new, we could take some consideration there. And before I end, let me just say, go thrive.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That's great. And absolutely, we will have activities on all those sides, right? The legacy businesses, the more established, as well as the emerging and startup. And so we work with our partners to make sure that they have access. I love the spaces you mentioned. We're going to see more of those co-working collaborative spaces that have programming built in and support built in. And so the Thrive in the 05, as you mentioned, is a focused effort in our 05 area, Miracle Mile and the Oracle area corridors. And we're working with our partners in housing and community development and planning and development to bring about some revitalization there as well. So again, thanks.
Great, thank you. Rich comments, anything else? Tammy, I just want to quickly go back. You mentioned the where is it? Demographics. So related to the poll results. Just to clarify, none of us are presuming that this is a sort of going to pass muster by any professor of survey methodology. We're going to fail that class. This is really about seeking input, not about balancing or having it scientifically relevant. It's a source of input, right? And so we do have demographic information that we collected based on email surveys that I think people have responded to. But the intent here is not to be statistically valid. The intent here is to foster conversation as over time, the Mayor Council and the city migrate to a participatory budgeting process, all sort of built around this notion of the place-based, people-centered future. We envision what services we want. So if it feels squishy scientifically, it's because it is. That's the reason. Any other comments or questions for anybody? Anita, are there any projects that are focused on affordable housing developments, communities for seniors? Barbara, you want to take that too?
Well, I might need a little help from my friends on this one, and the mayor certainly mentioned the Commission on Equitable Housing. And so there is a focused conversation about how to increase more units that are affordable with the capital A, but we also talk about affordable with the lowercase a in terms of workforce housing, and just the idea that we need housing types and options for all price levels, right? In order to have a balanced community. So Mayor, if you want to add to that, I know it's a big priority for our mayor and council.
Thank you, Barbara. Yes, as a matter of fact, as we think about a resilient recovery and making it a people-centered economy, we want to see, progress in our city. Progress is good. It's a good word. It's not a bad word. Being a progressive, I believe that progressing and not leaving anyone behind is key to how we recover and how we recover in Tucson and how we recover in our economy. That's why I believe wholeheartedly that we need to create small business navigators that will help legacy businesses and startups, as Michael said earlier. And as we start planning for investment in our urban corridors, I'm thinking Oracle, I'm thinking 22nd Streets east of Alvernon, golf links east of Swan, in areas, Grant and Alvernon, in areas of our city that need investment, that we can create affordability as we plan. The idea is to be able to plan ahead and make sure that the city of Tucson is planning for affordable housing. A different income, mixed income, senior housing for our affordable rental, affordable home ownership. And so we cannot leave affordable housing to the end. And hopefully, mayor and council and our economic initiatives office, as well as our planning and development department, and our commission, our Equitable Housing and Development Commission, will work hand in hand to make sure that affordability is part of the plan. We have a really good opportunity in my mind. The funds that we are receiving from the federal government, the American Rescue Plan, to be able to put together a long-term affordability strategic plan. And that's exactly what we're working on. My colleagues on the council, and I did see that Teresa Olson, Vice Mayor Lee's Chief of Staff, as well as Mark Kerr, Chief of Staff to Councilmember Fimbres, are here in this meeting today. I didn't see if other offices were represented, so forgive me if I haven't mentioned you, but this mayor and council really care about making sure that we have affordable housing options for our community, young and old.
That's right. It has been a long-standing priority. You have articulated it in all caps, bold, which would be screaming, I guess, if it was a text. Any other comments? Any other comments? Miranda, you've been nodding your head a lot. I'm going to just turn to you and say, what do you share?
I feel like we're old friends.
We are old friends. Nice.
Yeah, I just really love the direction that it's going. I love the thought of embedding equity in the decisions that we're making. And I guess what I keep thinking about is I wonder what evaluation processes are going to be put in place to like monitor and track, to ensure that the decisions that are being made are having the effects that we want them to have.
It's a great question. I see lots of folks.
Yes, and thanks, Miranda. You've been part of a lot of our conversations as well, related to economic development. And so as we are kind of bringing those to a head, I'll say, so that we can come back to mayor and council and share some of our reporting out and recommendations. What we've gathered over the last few months are some really great opportunities to increase the level of what we call auditing of our programs. And so not only did we have some strategies from Dr. Paivo, but we are reaching out to partners that what I would call third-party financial review partners that can help us do just that. Look at these projects that are coming our way, and if they're eligible for incentives, we take a look at that in a more in-depth manner than maybe we have in the past. And again, it can be done by a third party, so it's unbiased and neutral, and it establishes a gap so that it establishes need as well. So we're absolutely looking at that. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Miranda. See, that's how, after a while, you just like, it feels like cheers. We all know each other. And is there anyone on this call for whom this is the first budget town hall that they're attending? If so, I just want to hear from you. And we just want to know who you are. So turn your mic on. This is your first one of these.
This is my first meeting.
So is it, pronounce your name so I get it right?
Elia.
Hi, Elia. So tell us, have you lived in Tucson a long time?
Yes, yes, I've lived here well, almost all my life, but I just recently hired on with the city of Tucson. So this is like my third week working. I work in the tax auditing department, and this is my first budget meeting that I've attended.
Wonderful. Congratulations on your new job. Laura, that now definitely means she's only been on the job 3 weeks, so she gets to claim new employee, the newbie. Congratulations. I hope you have a wonderful new adventure.
And she works at the best department in the city, by the way.
And that was probably not.
That would be business services.
Because that was.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll just say it. Let's all stand down on the pride there. We represent all employees.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. Next steps, to just give you the next steps, I'm going to just have you look in the rearview mirror for a second to get clear about the next step. We've completed now 4 budget town halls within the last month, each with a different focus area. So Mayor Romero had mentioned the focus areas. I was going to remind you, the first one was called infrastructure and mobility. That was the focus. Climate action and adaptation was the second one. Community safety was the third. Today's focus area has been on resilient recovery. Just like you did today, participants in each of the town halls, some of you have been to all 4, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. We gave you a bunch of services, you sort of prioritized the services. So we've got now prioritized services that have sort of surfaced in each of the 4. Make sense with me so far? Just like we did today. In the next several days, you're going to receive an email sharing the top priorities that surfaced in each of the 4 budget town halls. And then the question we're going to ask you is, please take all of the top priorities and now prioritize them. So far you've been prioritizing within infrastructure and mobility, but now we're going to give you the top infrastructure and mobility priorities against the other 4 topics and say now rank order the whole group. Does that make sense? So pretty please, that's kind of begging, but trying not to sound beggy. Pretty please, when you get that email, it's going to go to there have been several hundred over the 4 sessions that have participated. Everyone's going to get the same opportunity. Please seize the opportunity. Again, it's not to score any points on scientific methodology, because we acknowledge this is not scientific. It's really critical input, right? That's what it is. And so let me thank you in advance for the decision I just feel like you're going to make, which is, let me fill out that last thing. And that will be coming, Dr. Mendoza, within the next week. Everyone will have that, right? That would be safe to say. Okay, so thank you in advance for making the time to take that last step with us. It will provide, I promise you, really valuable input that your mayor, your council members, Mike Ortega, and the city staff really sincerely want from you. So that's what that is. Any questions about that? Sometimes I can overcomplicate anything. All right, good. Then I want to wrap it up with gratitude before I hand it back to Mayor Romero. I want to say to you, Mayor Romero, to your peers on the council, Mike Ortega, your extraordinary staff. Lane Mandel makes you look very good. There, I just said what you already knew. But to a department leader that's been a part of this process, it's been a really remarkable thing to bear witness to as a person that doesn't live with you. Extra props to Elaine Becker, under whose leadership this started. The quick baton to Dr. Mendoza, who's still pretty new, newer than Lara on the job, and has just been remarkable as a Shiro dynamic duo with Lane. They are the people who do such hard work all the time and never look for any attention. So I just want to make sure that we're making them all feel really uncomfortable with the amazing attention that we're sending their way. You're welcome. To you, Madam Mayor, and to the members of the council, thank you for the authenticity of your commitment to contemporizing this budget process and including the community as collaborators. I hear it said a lot, I don't see it done a lot. And so I would say to you, at the helm of the city of Tucson, the authenticity of your commitment is really impressive. And as you do that, and the city and the staff follow you in that pursuit, what you're doing is putting the public back in public service And for those of us that represent the public, that gives us a lot of hope. So I want to say thank you to all of you who took 90 minutes, most of you who took 90 minutes 4 times to squeeze out all of the other demands on your time and decide to have community be worth your time and involvement. It's a big deal. Your ideas matter, the solutions matter. There aren't easy solutions to these complicated, this is complicated stuff. And at the end of the day, if we can dream it and we can talk through it and we can imagine what's possible, there's nothing we can't do, especially when we leave a commitment to leave nobody behind. Like, that's an extraordinary thing. You live in an amazing community, and the things that, the actions and the way in which you're doing it to get to your next chapter is an absolute joy and a real honor to watch. So it is 6:57. I am one lucky electron continuing to orbit around your remarkable nucleus, all of you, City of Tucson, and I'm going to hand the gavel back to my favorite mayor, Mayor Romero. Don't tell my own that.
I won't tell the Reno mayor that. I just want to thank you, Poonam, for doing such wonderful work interpreting the desire of what my office wanted to put together to collaborate and engage our community in our budgeting. And yeah, budgeting is difficult, you know, and I've had 13 years to get used to the line items and the numbers and all that. But at the end of the day, budgets are moral documents, and your voice in telling us we want affordable housing, we want investment in our parks, we want investment in climate resiliency strategies, all of these, this input, as simple as they sound, really help guide mayor and council and the wonderful, amazing, super smart department directors and city manager that we have with us. So all of your voices, however you want to put it in a sophisticated way or in a very, very simple way, and just saying, hey, we need more money for X or Y, is we will listen to that. So I'm very excited for all of your input, all of your feedback, all of the amazing work done by Lane Mandel and Charlene Mendoza, my chief of staff, and my previous chief of staff, Elaine Becker, who still is very bought in and responsible and loves the city of Tucson and the government and what we do. All of you, Laura, Barbara, all of you for coming up. This is not the last time that we get to hear your voice. We have mayor and council meetings, and we have a call to the audience. You can always do that. We have OpenGov strategies for polling and for giving us your input and feedback. And so this is not the end. This is just the beginning of a process where all of us, both elected officials, our department director, city manager, and everyone in the city of Tucson, along with you, make the decisions of how we spend our taxpayer funds. So thank you all so much. I thoroughly enjoyed these town halls, and obviously there is room for additional conversation and discussion. So thank you and have a nice evening.
Before we leave, can we get a group picture real quick?
I thought you were kidding. What does that mean exactly? Like, you just want
I'll
to
take a screenshot.
Oh,
so everyone turn on your cameras if you are comfortable.
Oh, I see.
And then 3, 2, 1, say cheese. Great, thank you all.
What you meant. That's what you meant.
Thank you, everyone.
Look at your gorgeous faces. Thank you for being seen. Now I know how to do it. You say, let's take a group shot.
Thank you, everyone, so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a nice evening.